Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
Doing fine. I wonder how our president's doing this morning.
Yes, it's a frenzy.
Because the momentum is building. The Democrats have been wanting to impeach him for a long time. They've been making all kinds of charges. You know, Trump was in big trouble with Russiagate and collusion and cover-ups and on and on. And lo and behold, they were all lies. Yeah. And they finally spent, how much, $30-40 million. We had the Mueller examinations and found out there was nothing. But now Trump's still in trouble. And the way I read it, I think it was CNN said, this is the most serious affront to the Constitution ever. In recent time. They're just nearly hysterical, and the Congress people are coming forward. And I think I've told you this, but when I watch these members of Congress getting up, yelling and screaming and implying, boy, you know, what he has done is unconstitutional. This is abhorrent. I took an oath to obey the Constitution, and this is very deserving of impeachment. And all I think about is, how many things have they done in Washington in the last 50 years that was absolutely not unconstitutional, that was authorized? And you could go down the list whether it was war or whatever. So it really bugs me what's going on. But politically is the only thing that counts. And right now this looks like there's a setback. But there was a lot of setbacks. Remember all the clips that played back about the trouble that Trump was in. This is the end. This is the end. And it all chime in, and they orchestrated the public relations for it. And now this is starting, but politically this is big stuff, because they're not going to convict Trump of impeachment and kick him out of office. Everybody knows that. So it's a political stunt and political bill. The biggest thing is try to sort this out. And we want to talk a little bit about the whistleblower. There's a whistleblower involved, so I want to spend some time on that. So hopefully we can get to the bottom of that.
And the backdrop here is that, you know, President Trump spoke to the new president of Ukraine recently, and the issue came up of President Biden's son's corruption problems in Ukraine, which were widely written about. His activity in Ukraine was widely known at the time, but the issue now hinges on when he talked to the new president of Ukraine. There's, I think, $400 million worth of U.S. military aid that had been on ice for quite some time. The question is, we do know that he brought up the issue of the investigation of corruption and of Biden's son. The issue is whether there was a quid pro quo. Hey, listen up. If you want this money, you better take down Biden's son. The president says, no way, that's not at all what was discussed. You know, he did bring it up, but wasn't any issue of quid pro quo. The Democrats are saying because of this whistleblower, who even the Washington Post reported does not have firsthand knowledge of the telephone call. So that's all sort of a red flag. It makes you wonder if this is a deep state deal where Brennan and Clapper's people that are still in the intel community are listening. So it all hinges, apparently, according to the hysterical Democrats, on what Trump said in this phone call.
Right.
So, and we do, you know, the real issue, I mean, the bigger issue, and this is we both read Pat Buchanan's column earlier today, and a lot of people have written about it. The danger is in bringing this up, you're actually resurfacing this scandal of Hunter Biden, the president's son.
I think so.
You know,
that's sort of like what an incident like this brings up is all the terrible things they do, and they both parties do it together, and they don't even care. And even involving Ukraine, and we talked a lot under Obama. I'm sure the Democrats would want to impeach Obama. He was involved with regime change secretly, using the CIA and our diplomats, and we throw out an elected leader out of Ukraine and sort of set the stage for all this. But we had regime change, and you know, remember all the combination when they said Trump interfered and the Russians were interfering with the election? That was a high crime, you know. But we do it daily, and Ukraine has been involved. But this is what gets to me. The big stuff is the important stuff. They wouldn't dare touch it. How many presidents have taken it upon themselves to start wars, undeclared war, and it goes on and on. There's too many to list. But this whole idea that all of a sudden we have to impeach his president. He did something unconstitutional. It's so horrible. We have to immediately impeach him. So that is a little bit tiring.
And the danger here again is with Biden's son, and he was involved with this company, Burisma Holdings, which is a natural gas company. But the problem for Biden, Biden's got a problem with his mouth. He can't keep it closed. And when he does open it, he says weird things. But here is a clip, and we should show this because I don't know how much of America has seen this. Here's a clip of Biden bragging about getting someone fired in Ukraine and literally saying this is a quid pro quo. If you don't fire this guy, you will not get the money. So let's watch this.
I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
So who was this prosecutor, General Prosecutor Shokin? Well, he was the guy, Dr. Paul, investigating Biden's son for corruption. Here we had this great regime change. We ended corruption of Yanukovych. So Biden's son came in there, Hunter Biden came in there with his company. He was hired by this natural gas company, Burisma Holdings. He was paid $50,000 a month for sitting on the board. But his company in the U.S., Rosemont Seneca, they were receiving $160,000 a month from this company as well. Biden has no experience in the energy sector whatsoever, no experience running a company. He was paid about $3 million, and here you have the father saying, hey, I got that guy who was investigating my kid fired, and we gave him $1 billion for it.
Yeah, but you have to realize where he was giving this little talk gave the indication that he can get away with it. He was at the CFR, and giving this talk, so that he doesn't have to worry. And I was thinking about all the things going on, whether it was with Russiagate or with these last couple of days, of all the lies and innuendos and raising questions and the hysteria. 2 days, and boom, 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 and even some who have not even hinted that they thought, oh, maybe we better look into Trump. Now that they're talking about that, but it took a couple years to undo the lying that they did before. So I think the impression that has been given already on this is going to, to really clarify and get to the truth, probably would take another 2 years. That's why this is a political problem. And hopefully something breaks, and maybe what Pat Buchanan's on to, some of this would break, because in just the way you recited it, the trouble is we don't have millions of people watching our stuff, but maybe it'll spread around. Maybe people will take a listen to this and let other people know that there is an answer to this, because it's not simple. But this whole thing of quid pro quo, that's what foreign policy, foreign aid is all about. That's the reason they do it, and we expect to, our leaders expect to do that. But I would say that Republicans do it, the Democrats do it, Trump probably, maybe he talked to them on the phone, so maybe there would at least be, some innuations that occur. Yeah. But the whole thing is the point is the real corruption is stealing money from the American people and sending it over to some foreign country so that we can control their politics, and then we end up with a mess. Who gets to do the controlling on our side? It's pretty bad.
Yeah, there's the real corruption in the first place. Trump claimed, he said, there was no quid pro quo. But now what's come out today, which has got everyone's blood flowing at a high pace, at a high rate, is that apparently Trump ordered a hold on this $400 million worth of military aid before the call to the new president. So there's feeling now that this is the smoking gun. President Trump said, hey, I ordered the stop on the aid because the Europeans weren't coming through with their fair share, and I don't think we should pay the whole freight for this. Of course, we would say you shouldn't pay any of it. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, but that's what he claims, and that would be in keeping with what he says. Previously, the Europeans aren't ponying up.
Yeah, and I think that obviously is the case. But I was thinking about what was in the news today that could be a proper attention getter, and that is the tragedy that happened in Afghanistan. It's been going on for 18 years. Trump ran on a program. It's a bad war. Of course, Obama ran on a program and said Afghanistan was a good war. But anyway, it's a bad war. It's a Republican war and a Democrat war, and it goes on and on. But just yesterday, I guess, we participated in a bombing raid of a wedding party, and 40 civilians were killed. Now, can you imagine, our media covering this and taking a picture of this and put it up? Look at what we have done in an illegal, unconstitutional, immoral war, and done by a president that promised us to get us out of there. And we have to do things. We have to curtail his powers and then work on curtailing these executive power privileges that he has. Now, there's where the real problem is. This is all total fiction, and it gets 99% of the attention. And because the election is, important to everybody, I think it's a lot less important than some others, because it seems like under the conditions we have today, not much changes. We have Trump, who is seen as a more desirous of peace than Obama, or Obama actually pretended to be, but Trump keeps the troops in, keeps it going, and there we have had Obama. He won the Nobel Peace Prize. What a joke that whole thing is. So, and this is an opportunity for us to make our best effort to show really what's going on here. And this is all fake. It's all political positioning. And once again, this whole idea that we have to get engaged because we caught the president cold-handed.
Yeah.
He broke the Constitution. What about Article 1, Section 8, and all the laws that we watch get passed in the years we were in Washington? How many of them really fit the category of constitutionality? Not very much.
Yeah. People might watch this show saying, oh, here they go, they're defending Trump again. But I think your point and our point as a show is that you're missing the point. Yeah. The point is not that he had a phone call. The point is everything else he's done. And they're just too lazy, or they don't care, and Congress is completely asleep. What about the continued bombing? What about lobbing all those missiles into Syria before we even knew about the chemical attacks? What about all this stuff?
But wouldn't that be because they agree with him on those?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is it. I mean, they were rather quiet with Trump's outspoken disagreement with the Federal Reserve. But the truth is, if it's determined, and many people are coming around to our position, that the Federal Reserve is a real mess, and they're bringing, giving us a lot of grief. But basically, Republicans and Democrats agree with that. And there's a few of us that still believe that the Constitution does instruct us about what monetary policy is like, and that there's no authority for the Federal Reserve. So, but both parties agree with that. And that's why if you're going to have a fight for power, I think these are real fights, right? Fight for powers and positioning, because who knows whose kid's going to get a benefit. And to paint this now as something that the Democrats are saintly, and then you just gave the good explanation about how Biden's son and the Bidens benefited by all this.
The danger for the elites is that this really exposes the deep corruption in Washington, the whole thing. Because if you remember very well, the coup in Ukraine was all about, we got to get rid of the corruption under Yanukovych. We got to get rid of all this corruption. And what happens, the problem wasn't the corruption. The problem is that people like the president's campaign chairman, Manafort and the others, they were the ones benefiting from the corruption. We want our guys to benefit from the corruption. We got to get a job for Hunter Biden. He doesn't have anything to do. He's getting in trouble. I think he's busted for drugs or something before. We need to get something for this guy to do. So that was the problem, not the corruption, but we want our own corruption.
You're pretty good on this stuff, and you're good on all this legality stuff and how Congress works. So I'm going to ask you a very, very tough question.
Uh-oh.
Do you think another special counsel might be helpful to us?
Maybe a few million more dollars to just you know, to guide
that'll
you.
subsidize somebody.
Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, the real issue is that President Trump has some trouble because the optics aren't very good, and he's not very good at explaining himself. But the real, the person I would hate to be more than Trump is Biden right now, because he didn't want this, even with his gaffe about bragging about. He doesn't want this corruption exposed. People will see his son going in there with no experience, making millions of dollars off of this. It looks bad. Look at Biden's numbers; they're already sinking. Every time he opens his mouth, people say, "Oh no, we don't want this guy to be president." So it's a big trouble.
But isn't this similar to what they did in Russiagate? I mean, they were involved, and Hillary was involved with all this. They were much more guilty, but they took everything and flipped it around and said it was all the Republicans.
Yeah.
It took 2 years to clarify that. So they're doing the same thing now. I think Biden is worse at this.
Yeah.
And I don't think Trump. To me, it would probably be nickels and dimes for Trump.
Yeah.
You know, for that. Is he going to say, "Hey, my son needs a job for $50,000 a month"?
Yeah.
You know, that's not true.
Yeah.
But in trying to seek the truth is a job. But I hope Pat Buchanan's on the right track, and you mentioned it, that when the truth comes out. But it's a matter of timing, and politics is all about timing and images and propaganda. And the clock is running. So if the Republicans are going to neutralize us, they can't take 2 years to do it. They better come up, with the Biden thing. But it remains to be seen, because Biden right now, or the Democrats, have control of this. They're not going to be talking about Biden so much as they just have directed it toward this evil Trump, who participated in negotiating about corruption in our foreign aid. What a mess.
Yeah, what a mess. Well, I'll just remind our viewers again, as I did yesterday, to click like. We did get an increase in likes by asking. If we do that, it helps get the program out in front of more people. So it's a pretty easy way to help the program. We'd also ask you to sign up for updates from the Ron Paul Institute. Just go to ronpaulinstitute.org and you'll see subscribe and do that, so we can send you stuff, send you some information. A lot of times we'll send information to our subscribers first when it comes to where our next conferences are going to be or where our next events are going to be. And of course, always, we don't share or sell your name. So we want you to be part of what we're doing. So thanks for watching, Dr. Paul.
Thank you very much. I want to point out one more irony about this whole mess, because when the subject came up on whether Trump was negotiating with our foreign aid, I think it was $250 million, and the Democrats have said, well, he was negotiating with, and he committed a treasonous crime by doing this. But it's ironic to me that taking money from the people and giving the authority to the president and the Congress to give this money away. That is much closer to a treasonous crime, even though it's so accepted, nobody would agree with that. But all of a sudden, they turn it around and they're able to say that if you deny for a moment of giving this money in an unconstitutional way, we're going to try you for treason, and we're going to convict you and convict you of being treasonous, kick you out of office. So it's a mess, but I think truth will win out in the end, and hopefully things will be better than they are right now, because this is a big mess. But this is more or less what I've anticipated and predicted, because I claim the country is bankrupt. Financially, it's bankrupt. Morally, it's bankrupt. Politically, it doesn't work anymore, and tinkering with it won't work. This is all tinkering. It's not dealing with the real problem of the Constitution in its real sense. It's not real. It's not dealing with the monetary issue and the spending issue and the debt. So there is a bankrupt. There's a, politically, the whole system doesn't function anymore, and that isn't all bad. But it gives us an opportunity. We better help design and help replace it, because there's a lot of people out there that know exactly what we know, and they call themselves socialists, and they're not embarrassed by it. And this is what we have to work for. And it's try to define clearly what a republic should be like, and what limited government means, and what personal liberty should mean to American people, so that they encourage us and also join us in this struggle. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.